stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this point, we have recognition of visitors. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with Ron Whitney from the Youth League. He would like to talk to you about the possibility of maybe putting some restrooms in at Harristown Ball Islands. So go ahead, Ron, if you would.
All right. My name is Ron Whitney. I'm current vice president of the Sangamon Valley Youth League and girls coordinator for softball. One thing we've kicked around is possibly putting in some restrooms there on the add-on to the concession stand. It benefited everybody is what we're really looking for. I mean, because we currently rent 3 to 4 porta johns a year for the games and for the season. I've got some, I hope I gave everybody one, a little packet. I've never done anything like this. This is the first time I've ever been up in front of a board. The first photo is where our current big equipment shed is. That's where I'm wanting to add to the building, is that section there. We'd relocate the shed probably over by the batting cage. Just enough on there to get us a restroom. What I'm looking for in the restrooms is ladies and gents on vice versa the building, big enough, handicap accessible, 36-inch doors going in, 2 stalls on the lady side, a stall and probably a urinal, or possibly 2 stalls on the men's side. And I'd like to also put in there, I don't know if anyone still has younger kids or not, but I remember how much it was. It'd be nice to have them diaper changing tables for the little guys, because we do have, Diamond 3 there. We have little guys, and parents still have little bitty ones running around. That might help them out. Of course, with a sink, hot water. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe 10 to 14 foot. I haven't really got crunch numbers on how big I need to go to get them that size of restrooms, because I want to make, if I do it, I want to do it right. I want to make it 100% handicap accessible. The second picture after that is actually the current walk on the south side of the building. We would add that same width to the addition. So there would be concrete all the way to access the restrooms. The third picture is the one on the south side. That would be a whole new concrete pour from front to back of the building. Concrete, the same width, so they can, if anyone's in a wheelchair or whatnot, it's easy for them to get down to them restrooms. The fourth picture is a potential route for sewer and water. I know Mrs. Waldy's house is in there, I do apologize. We could tie up to hers, I guess, but I'm not too for sure. I just think that would probably be the easy path for us to be able to afford, because I do not want to tear up the parking lot at all. If I have to go in, we gotta get water through anything, I'd rather be that rock lot, because that's easier for us to repair instead of going to the asphalt part of the complex, of the parking lot. Something I just found out today that we could possibly look into, if with board approval, is possibly a septic system for that location back there. And then all we have to worry about is water. Because I don't know if, by looking at that picture and looking at it, if we'll have enough grade to go that distance. For sewer and septic, it's really easy to maintain, especially for as much but little use them restrooms would get during a season. And a good thing of putting restrooms at the Harristown facility is that we'll have running water, for any injuries, washing hands, keeping people clean, especially with the COVID going on, everybody there's no reason not to wash hands. It's there, it's accessible. So we currently don't have running water at all. We have to bring in water to get us by through, health code. So, I mean, that would, cause we put in a hot water heater, electric hot water heater to maintain, so we got hot water. And, it benefit the school and the community. The reason I say the school, the village of Harristown, their 4th of July festival. Last few years, except last year, you know, you guys allow them to host events, vendors and whatnot there on the premises, and they utilize the restrooms inside the building, and along with electricity. With putting restrooms out there at the concession stands, that would eliminate all the foot traffic going into the school during that event for restrooms. We could open up them restrooms. Everything's out there. There, you know, with all the hard work that the janitors do during that time of year, getting the floors waxed, putting all the time into it, you won't have little feet going in there, tracking it up or anything like that. You can keep the building shut down. For that purpose, we can just go out, open up the bathrooms to the concession stand, and everyone can utilize that instead of going into the school. That's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm kind of spearheading it. I think it'd be a great asset for everybody, especially the Sangamon Youth League. With as many kids as we have there during the season, I mean, it would help us out greatly. And I think it would help everyone out tremendously.
Is this something that the youth group is gonna pay for, that you've raised funds for, or you're gonna be raising funds for, or what exactly?
I've been in talks with the mayor of Harristown, trying to get her on board a little bit. Maybe they can help us out.
Right.
We have a small amount of money in the youth league account that we can kind of put towards it. I'm in scouts. I'm an assistant scoutmaster for our troop out here. I try to do everything. I try to get everything I can for free. I will pull all my resources for volunteers through contractors and so forth to make the expense at a low cost for us. Just because, I mean, we don't have a whole lot. I'd rather spend a big lot of money on the youth than this project. So, I mean, if we have to do separate fundraisers, I'll look into that. It's just.
So this would be something we would need to put on the agenda for next month, so that we can actually take a vote on it. But we would, I mean, just with my association, with the Eliapolis Athletic Association in the past, just making sure if it does get approved, that everything has to go through as far as building trades, and what exactly is being used has to go through the school, through Mr. Meadows to be approved,
Okay.
because it is on school property.
Right.
So it's something that we could definitely add to the agenda next month, if you can come back with some more definitive information possibly at that time.
Okay.
As to size and what you're thinking and that kind of thing.
Cost and
Right.
how the funds are gonna be raised would be
Okay.
very helpful.
Okay. Get 2 prices for sewer, you know, 1 for septic and 1 to run it possibly to the road. I mean, is that something, or can I just deter to do a septic? Would that be something you guys would have to?
Probably need to look into the septic tank and see if that's something that we're allowed to do on our property. I don't know.
Okay.
So maybe you can follow up with him, he can get back with you
Okay.
and let you know how we're allowed to proceed.
Okay.
Are you gonna heat it or winterize it? Where was that? I thought about that.
Well, my thought process was to get it to where we can, the water shut off. I mean, of course, it's gonna be, you know, below freezing. Get it to where we can get it shut off down low and blow the lines out. And then we can pour RV antifreeze, you know, in the sinks, the toilets and so forth. Kind of winterize it like a camper.
Yeah.
Is what my plan is.
I think that's what they do, and Iliopolis has just the 2-stall bathroom. You might be able to go down there and take some measurements to get some of your ideas, because they have 2 in each side and a sink.
Right.
I don't think there's any changing stations, but there's probably room across from the sink to do a changing
Right.
station. If you're just looking for a template to go from, sounds like kind of the same setup you're looking for, so.
Right.
we'll put you on the agenda
Okay.
for next month, and then Mr. Reynolds will follow up with you regarding septic.
Okay, awesome, thank you, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on.
And now we have Bree Empson, gonna talk to you.
Sure. I think I was a little naive when I came in a couple months ago. I know when I walked in the door, I thought that my school board would be helping me figure out a way for my girls to be able to play, sports this year. I was clearly reminded that we are no longer a part of Sangamon Valley School District. Thank you for the reminder. So I had to look into some other things. I do remember getting a lot of emails before the school year started about, just bear with us while we go through all these difficult times, pandemic, unprecedented, we don't know exactly what we're gonna do or what this year is gonna look like, but, we did that, and I kind of thought, I guess that you guys would be doing some of those same things, thinking of ways to help different situations. Homeschooling was a big decision for us for lots of reasons, but I guess my question to you guys is like, what is the fear in letting the homeschool kids play? Not just my two girls, but in general, we're not gonna homeschool again ever after this. But after I thought about it more and I started to look into it, and I learned that like the IHSA rules don't prohibit the kids from playing. Then my curiosity was like, why wouldn't we want to include more students? Like if you call the food pantry, they say like, any student in the Sangamon Valley School District is welcome to get food from the food pantry. But if you call and say, hey, we're a homeschool family, we need groceries, they say, hey, you know what? You live in our town, you come get groceries, we wanna help you. That's very different from school, but my question is, we're teaching our kids to, play well with others and include everybody and don't let anybody sit alone at the lunch table, but if you didn't sign up at the beginning of the year, you cannot play with us. And that's more than just my two girls in softball, volleyball, whatever. So my question, like moving forward, even though we'll be back in the district next year and it might not matter as much, why do we not want the homeschool kids to play sports? Because I don't think I got that out of the way last time.
I can,
Thank you.
in talking with other administrators, because after, the last meeting that we had, I reached out to all of the area superintendents. And I specifically asked, do you allow, homeschool students to participate? And none of them do, except for I found out that our Jenna Oriana does, if the student is enrolled in school and is there for 300 minutes.
In the building?
Yes.
Okay, but that's
So
not an IHSA.
that's not homeschool.
And that's not an IHSA requirement, right? That they're in the building for 300 minutes?
Well, you have to be enrolled and you have to be a student for 300 minutes. That's what I can't figure about the IHSA rule.
So my understanding of that, is, and correct me, anybody if I'm wrong, you have to be physically signed in and like registered with the school, so you guys are gonna receive, or the school is gonna receive all the government funding for that student, that head count. But then I have to bring my curriculum to someone, superintendent or whoever, to okay my curriculum, which I did bring. And then we're enrolled with you, and that's it, it's on paper. I mean, I can't homeschool my kids and make them do 30 hours of schoolwork a week and have them be in your building. I mean, that's not even homeschooling anymore. And we're not homeschooling because we don't think
That's
Sangamon
kind of
Valley.
what I looked at IHSA's policy and thought, this makes no sense.
It's
It's not
bizarre.
clear.
Right.
I think, again, from an administrator standpoint, it's very difficult. We have, administrators, teachers, that's watching what's going on with these kids, making sure that they're meeting their goals, that they have passing grades. By turning that over, we're taking someone's word for it.
So we're working on honor system.
I don't even necessarily think it's an honor system. I think that it's very difficult to continue to track and make judgments for eligibility based on one person's word as opposed to a group of teachers and administrators. That's my feeling on it.
So at one school, I think what they do is you turn in the weekly grades like on a
school is that?
Let me look.
Do
Maybe
you
you're
mind if
gonna
I hop
ask.
in, because I actually know, I can answer this and make it a lot quicker.
Thank you,
You don't mind.
Mohammed, go
I
ahead.
think we have to be really careful because
I
this
totally
isn't
understand.
on the agenda tonight, so.
Yeah.
I called Carol
I think
Stacy.
it'll make it go quicker, honestly, I do, it's,
Okay, yeah, you called to address the board, but if we put an action item on, that is not under action item, it's addressing the board where we're supposed to sit and listen to your concern and then not have discussion is how the rules are read. So I just don't wanna go on too long where we probably need to put it on next month's
Yeah.
meeting so that we're
I
following.
totally understand. I just, I think that, I wanna do this the last time that I spoke, I actually gave false information because I agree with Bob 100% on what he's saying. And, but it actually ended up not being real, because where I got my information was from the failings of other schools, and it, like Argenta Orienta, and how they would have they would need 7 classes, and that's not homeschooling, but that's just IHSA hunting. They're just saying, I'm done with, you guys can do this, or you can do whatever program is approved. So I actually called IHSA, and I spoke with them, and the rules aren't anything near that. And I actually had a small conversation with Mr. Field, and I think it's something that nobody ever really discusses. So that's why nobody's really aware of it, but essentially, an enrollment is an agreement with the school, which is, it's very simple to do. And I think maybe the school you were speaking of was Muhammad Seymour.
Yeah. that's
Okay,
what
so they actually just recently passed it, and I spoke with their athletic director, and it's nothing that involves teachers, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want to make anything more encumbering for teachers. It's pretty quick. It's, you can be in, anyone can enroll at the school. People might not be aware that homeschool children can actually just take classes at the school if they like to. There's no, they can't be stopped from coming in and attending a class.
If the class is not full, correct?
If the class is not full, that's true. But that's not what I'm speaking. It's, there's a lot of weird things about that nobody knows about because it's kind of rare. Anyways, so you can take courses that are approved at the school, by the school, which Muhammad has several, and they allow pretty much any of them. And you just bring it in, and it's a sheet like it, that an athletic director would look over and say, this child's passing or they're not. So that would be what you're looking into. And I think that when we voted and we said yes or no, that was just, you'd just be saying yes or no, and you may get Argent Orienta, and it says come to school for 7 classes, and that's kind of weird. Whereas that's not how it's held in Urbana or Fisher or Muhammad Seymour. So, the parents are meant to be held accountable by the state, and IESA, there's actually no rules for it, but for IHSA, there are curriculum that you can go through. You can say that this is what it is, they're passing, and you can hand that in, and it's just as quick as an athletic director checking someone else's. So, that, and that would actually go for accreditation. School, if the child wanted to go to school later, that would work towards it. So there actually isn't a lot. It is only based on whether or not the board thinks it is okay for the rest of the community to come and participate in extracurricular activities. There is no IHSA stipulation that says that they cannot. It's pretty well handled, and there's no extra problems. And if you would like to, I don't know if you spoke with them, but you could speak
I
with
did talk to
Seymour, and if it ever came up on a policy thing again, which this is not an actionable item, I just want people to be informed of what it was, because I specifically said there was a lot of hurdles and it didn't sound good. So I just wanted to clear that up, that is not actually.
And I appreciate that, and I guess my thing is, I mean, I know plenty of kids in sports, and I know they've gotta be, they've gotta have certain grades, but they're going home at night, and maybe they're doing their homework, maybe somebody else is, it's coming back, it's getting turned in, it's getting graded. I mean, you could say the same thing of any homeschool kids, and you guys do have a few homeschool families right now out there that are doing younger kids, and I don't know that you're encouraging them to send them to a school where they're being discluded from things, like because they're doing school a different way. And again, I'm not homeschooling this year, like, this is not my cup of tea. But I do like coaching the JFL cheerleaders, and I don't wanna tell 4th grade Molly that she can't be a cheerleader because she does school at home with her mom and learns differently than all the other little girls that are cheerleading. Like, I don't understand the fear from Sangamon Valley, I guess, in general. And if we table this to the next board meeting, because I was here 2 or 3 board meetings ago, and then there was another discussion that I didn't know about that you looked into and nobody ever got back to me. I've already got a kid that's missed a whole volleyball season, and I got one more. It's her 8th grade year. She wants to play basketball. She wants to try to be, team captain, and I don't know if 8th grade night will fly or not, but by God, there might be a poster with her name and picture on. She'd like to be part of that. So, I really did come in here a few months ago and thought you guys were like gonna help me out. That was silly, I'm sorry. But is there a reason, or is there something we can do? It says enroll, pay the enrollment fee, all those things. Like, there's so many things we could not change about this year, but like this, I feel like you guys could change if you cared to. Like, this is up to the local school board. It literally says up to the local school, not IHSA, which is what I thought. None of those things.
I think if someone on the board wants to put it on the agenda for next month, it is something we can revisit. We just are held to certain guidelines, and it was on the agenda for last month, and we did vote on it. So in order to keep it all on the up and up, it has to go on the agenda for next month. My own personal thought is, yes, I guess I'm concerned with, I feel like you guys are probably educating your kids very well at home, but we are going to run into those people in life that are not going to be doing those things, and they're going to be signing off, yes, Jimmy or Johnny did this, and they can participate, this is their grade for the month.
So,
And
the worst case scenario is that Johnny is failing science and he still got to play basketball?
yes, because we're not letting, how is it fair to our other 7th, 8th graders, 20 of them, that we're saying you're not eligible to participate because of your grades, you're not eligible to practice, you're not eligible for 2 games, and if you do it again, you're kicked off the team. But yet we can't hold anyone else that's homeschool accountable like that?
Yeah, you would. It actually is, and there would be a curriculum that, like I said, it would be just the same as you would hand it in, and it's approved curriculums by other schools. And that's why I agree with everything that you guys are saying, because I have the same exact concerns. I mean, I'm in a homeschooling community, so I know the failure, I've seen the failures of it. But it's not, it isn't common at all, and most of these people are really on top of it. But, as I said, there are mainstream curriculums, and then there are several other ones that could be approved that does hold them accountable to a degree.
Is there any way to even like make an exception for this particular, what do we call it, dumpster fire school year? And you don't change the entire curriculum just yet because you have time to do that later? Like, you guys are gonna push this off until she doesn't play basketball, I'm getting that, but the basketball season starts soon. And the question was last time, could they just practice?
I have to say something.
Please.
I can't. You're saying that they're going to push this off.
I meant the school board that has
When
the
you
vote.
knew
I'm sorry.
You knew where we stood in November.
Mhm.
You could have, at that point, put your kid in school and remote, and basically did the same thing that you're doing now, and they would have been eligible. So I'm not gonna listen to you blame the board.
Okay, I'm not blaming.
Well, it
I
sounds
apologize
like
if
you're
it
blaming
seems
to
that
me.
way. I couldn't put my kids in school and remote. Daily, our Wi-Fi drops with that many kids all online doing schoolwork. Like, we
There
have
are
to
kids that
take
don't have
turns.
Wi-Fi at all that we send packets out to.
It wasn't the choice we made, so you're forcing that if we wanted to play sports, is what you're saying.
I'm saying there were other avenues for them to play sports,
You're right.
and you chose not to follow. That is remote instruction.
Okay, so we're gonna table it till the next board meeting, which is when?
I believe it's March 18th,
March 18th. Okay,
March 17th.
17th.
and so you didn't get back to me on the practicing thing, but you voted last meeting that they're not allowed to practice even if they don't compete.
It's a board policy, and that's what I told them, that they need to make a decision, whether we stick with it or we don't.
And what
They
was,
either practice, or they don't, or they completely participate or they don't. There's no, I'll practice and not play, and that's not what our policy says, and that's what I explained to them.
okay, and that was discussed at the other meeting, so they don't practice or play.
That's correct. It's an all or none. It's a policy.
I misunderstood that it was read they didn't compete, which is why I asked. But I appreciate you letting me know. So if I come back on March 18th,
I need a board member to ask to have it put on the agenda,
Gotcha.
and then we can put it on the agenda as the Wednesday prior to the meeting, or Thursday, I don't remember which date it says.
Okay.
Then we can put it on the agenda, and we can actually have a formal discussion and a vote, and go from there, like we did in January. It was on the agenda in January, it came up, we voted to leave it the same, so on and so forth. But now this month, we're restricted to you being here as a visitor, addressing us. I'm the only one that's supposed to respond in any sort of manner, myself or Mr. Meadows, and then it has to go on as another action item on a future agenda.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. Is this something that is even gonna be considered in the future? Like, screw my daughter's basketball season, but the rest of like homeschool curriculum, like is there a way that, is there something that would help you guys in the future that would let other homeschool kids be able to play sports? Or is there more information? I know I'm only addressing you.
That's fine. I just think, you know, for my personal reference, I would like to see what it would entail on, our administrators and our teachers part, because, I mean, this year being the year that it is, they're already doing so much more above and beyond what they're usually.
Well, it sounds like the way the other schools are doing it has nothing to do with any of the teachers. It's the secretary of like the sports, you know, the sports director. It's not any of the teachers having to do anything. That's the person you're checking in with, and maybe you can check in with the IHSA, but not a teacher necessarily. Because that was one of the things that I was worried about, was I gonna cause more work for Mr. Martin or Mrs. Koniak? Like, I didn't wanna do that either, because they are, right now, have a lot going on.
Right.
So that's a concern. And I know Mr. Stahl said he was concerned about insurance, which if they were enrolled in the school, they would technically be covered by insurance, correct? Or incorrect?
And, would it be homeschooling, you sign a waiver or whatever when you play sports, would it be injured or
I think if they're on property, they're covered.
And if they're enrolled,
If there's,
and they would legally have to be enrolled, so I would think that would be covered. I'm just trying, I wanna make sure I know what to address, because obviously this year is probably a wash, but next year, if there's other students, I mean, I do know other people that are homeschooling, and it would be nice to be able to have information for them moving forward. Or if we have other kids that wanna join teams. I know softball season rolls around, they call and ask people to play, because we don't have enough girls for a softball team. You know, we have teams that don't have enough kids, and we're excluding kids, and if we can fix that, this is a good school district. We may encourage people to come to our school district if, you know, they go, oh, they really include everybody in this community. So in grade school, we homeschool, and in high school, we send them, because SB's all inclusive, and they do a nice job with our kids.
I think just the more information that we can have, I mean, like I said, if James wants to, or whoever wants to get it back on the agenda, one of the board members, and take it upon themselves to bring us just as much as we can possibly, and maybe beforehand, have it in our board packet, maybe present it to Mr. Meadows, or he can get it to us to ingest beforehand, so we're not sitting here trying to listen to the information and go through it at this given moment. Usually we get our packets the weekend before, and, you know, just trying to find out, you know, what is done and why schools do and do not do it. I just know it's been, you know, an issue of the past. We really haven't had a lot of homeschoolers, and I don't know that we've ever had anyone ever partake in anything other than driver's ed, which we're required to provide.
Yeah.
So, just some additional information, I guess, if you wanna.
ISB definitely says include the homeschool kids in school stuff, but the sports is different, and that's a different organization, I get that. As far as my homeschool kids, like requirements to come back to school in the fall, I mean, you guys are working on an honor system there, right? Sports, no honor system, education, honor system?
Well, education has to be, I believe there's gonna have to be a test, a readmittance test. They'll have to do their constitution.
At home? And then you trust that I've graded it and it's fair?
What is I'm not sure on that. I just know it has to be completed before you.
I was told to
I
contact the
assumed that
high
they would come
school.
in and take the,
Yeah, we have a
Constitution
constitution
test at
test,
school.
and it's an Illinois and a US constitution test, and, Mr. Martin's created a test that they would come in and take.
I asked about that.
Yes, and, I have the materials if you wanna stop by sometime, or I can email them to you.
The materials such as,
So I have some materials that he has provided some of our students to study for the test. So if you are interested in that, I can send that to you.
so they're already working on, we have the constitution book and
They
they,
just have to have it completed by the end of the year.
okay. So we do need to come into Mr. Martin's classroom and take that.
Not necessarily Mr. Martin's class, I think I told you, we just have to schedule a time sometime. before the next school year. So,
I have gotten a lot of different information from a lot of administrators at this point.
so when
Okay,
we spoke, I just told you to coordinate with me by the end of the school year, and that we would schedule a time for the test, and it will be Illinois and United States Constitution
and you
test.
said,
And they
call
just
Mr.
have to-
Fields if anything else is required at the high school level.
Excuse me?
Are you the middle school principal, the new one, and you said, call Mr. Fields and see if anything else is required at the high school?
Correct, but the Illinois and the US Constitution is required.
Sure,
And
we knew that.
that is, yes, and that is scheduled with me at the middle school.
That's news to me, thank you.
I think also, I mean, just as a parent of former volleyball players, I don't, they do a lot in the summer, I don't know what they're gonna be allowed to do this summer. So getting that information and getting them cleared, if they are gonna come back to school, is gonna be something you're gonna wanna do early on in May, so that, in my kids' days, they started in June and they went all summer with volleyball. So if they're gonna be readmitted, I would think you would wanna take care of that by the end of the school year.
So if we don't agree by the end of this school year to come back in the fall, we don't do any summer volleyball? I really now need to be clear, because everybody is telling me something different. Can you explain what you just said to me, Stephanie?
In the past, summers past, not this past summer because of COVID, they weren't able to. But prior to that, they always do summer tournaments.
Sure.
They do like summer at the disc on Monday nights, that
Mhm.
type of thing.
Yeah, my girls do that.
That's incoming freshmen, as well as they usually get information through the school at the end of the year that says if you're going to be playing basketball or volleyball next year, you need to be in touch with this coach or whomever
Sure.
that will get you the information. So I'm just saying, in my parents' mind, thinking if you're bringing your kids back, you're gonna wanna have all the information to the school that yes, they're eligible to come back, they've met all the requirements and stuff, and in the event that we are allowed to do any summer activities.
So if my girls wanna play ball or go to camp this summer, I need to let you know that they're coming back in the fall.
Correct, so I would assume the school would need to know that
Okay.
prior.
For the disc.
The disc when we went, I don't even know if they still do it, because my kid's been out of school a couple of years now. But when we went, they went on Mondays and Thursdays, and they went as a team.
Sure.
So it wasn't individual kids coming in and out, but it was the school teams go, they play against each other all summer, and then they're ready for school when it starts, and because the season starts literally when we start school.
So if I don't commit to coming back to Sangamon Valley in May, then they can't, they also will not be allowed to play volleyball through the summer. Because we're still not part of Sangamon Valley yet.
I mean, that would be my take on it. What is-
Even though we don't register for school till August.
Would it
Do we
be
need to
possible-
register?
Typically, we've never had anybody that goes from homeschool, comes into the district, and then starts as a freshman. I can't think of any time that's ever happened.
I can't think of any time we've ever had a pandemic, it's all new. So I guess I'm asking, like, seriously asking you, do I need to have my kids registered for school by May if they
I
want
would
to
say that they have to meet the 8th grade criteria, which what we're saying
take
right
the
now is
constitution test?
the Constitution test.
Okay,
If they pass that,
but
then
my
I would say
seventh
they would
grader
be
can
clear.
just play, like the seventh grader, she can just play, because she doesn't have any requirements to come back to school in the fall.
So I don't know what they do in the summer.
Okay,
I really don't know.
constitution test is it, everybody agrees? Second.
I guess my question would be, because I'm not familiar with homeschooling, I mean, normally if you take, back in the day, if someone was out, I know several children that were out for a year and came back and were placed a grade level back. They
Mhm.
didn't test out, they didn't meet their requirements, so are we doing that testing as well?
I was told no and have been told that from the beginning of the year, so if it is gonna be different, I need to know.
As long as you're using an approved curriculum that's approved by the state of Illinois, you know, and you have proof of completing that, you know, there's not a need for a placement test if that curriculum has been, you know, approved by the state of Illinois and you've completed it.
So who approved it? Like, who did I show it to at the beginning of the year? Or I
I
just
mean,
show
it
it at
should
the
just
end?
be accredited.
Just show it to you at the end of the year?
I mean, I'm not
Or in
sure
August?
because I've never dealt with that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if it's a homeschool curriculum that's approved,
assume the one you're using, you guys are using the same
Should
one,
be.
right?
No, I have no idea what they do, no, this is new to me,
Oh, okay.
no, not the same at all.
I mean, I guess from what I'm hearing from the administrators is that it needs to be an accredited program that's accepted by IHSA and IESA schools. And as long as you've shown that you've completed those things, that you passed those things, then that can be brought to the school. Am I interpreting that
It
right?
has nothing to do with sports.
Right,
It's just
it's just the academics.
state, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and then the Constitution, I mean, that's the overarching.
I
Just
don't know
making
who
sure
those
that your
are.
program is accredited is the,
I'll look into that, because I'm not sure that's right, but I'll look into that. So, March 18th,
yes,
So,
17th.
17th, thank you.
Okay, going forward, I guess we need a motion, we have to go into a hearing for student discipline, so I need a motion to appoint myself as hearing officer for this student discipline hearing. Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And then I need a motion to enter closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
So,
Motion made by Roger Reed, is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff Stahl, call roll please.
I'm sorry. Kent,
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes. Okay. I need a motion to accept the closed session minutes as read in closed session.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Welby, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Kent, call roll please.
Feeling today. Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes,
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
yes.
okay. I need a motion to expel student SV 2021-1 for 2 years from February 17th, 2021 to February 17th, 2023, based on a preponderance of the evidence presented in the expulsion hearing and based on the board's determination that the student engaged in egregious conduct, that the student's continued presence at the school poses a threat to school safety of other students and staff and substantially disrupts the operation of the school. The board further finds that given the severity of the student's gross misconduct, there are no other appropriate disciplinary interventions available, and that the presence of the student at school will foster a culture that the student's behavior at school is acceptable or tolerated. The expulsion shall be held in abeyance only if the student will enroll in an alternative school during the period of his expulsion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Roger Reed, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Pearson, call roll please.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
I need a motion to accept the resignation of Joe Scanavino as middle school assistant scholastical coach effective immediately.
So moved.
Motion made by James, seconded by Jeff Stahl. I'm just gonna put everybody together. Call roll please.
Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes.
And a motion to employ David Fleming as the high school dean of students activities director effective beginning at the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, call roll please.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Okay, there's no motion necessary on this one as it's going to be, a move of current, staff. Stacy Marksberry has applied for the primary school education position. Her request for transfer will become effective at the beginning of the 2021-2022 school year. Do you have anything to add? Motion to employ Joe Scanavino as middle school head scholastic bowl coach effective immediately.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Jeff Stahl, call roll please.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Yes.
Vote for resignation.
Did we do what?
Did we vote for on resignation?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was back. Yeah. Motion to employ Casey Acree as a volunteer assistant football coach for the 2020-2021 school year. Motion made by Jeff Stahl, seconded by Eric Pearson. Call roll please.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Motion to employ Casey Acree as an athletic trainer for the 2020-2021 school year.
Vote.
James Kent, is there a second?
Second.
Roger Reed, call roll please.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Motion to employ Kyler Gentry as an athletic trainer for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
James Kent, call roll please.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
And brings us to consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions on what you received? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Weldy, is there a second?
Second.
Eric Pearson, call roll please.
Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes.
Superintendent's report.
All right, I have 3 items. First is a cooperative sports update. I just wanted to take an opportunity to state publicly that Tri-City has agreed to renew all of the current cooperative agreements. And they also agreed to the new high school boys basketball cooperative, which they will host. And along with that, we have a couple other changes. We will keep football here. Volleyball will go to Tri-City, so we both have a fall sport. In the winter time, this is for high school. In the winter time, the boys will go to Tri-City and participate. The girls basketball will come back to Sangamon Valley. And then in the spring, we'll stay with the current agreement. We host boys and girls track, and they host baseball and softball. So the cooperative sports are as balanced as they could possibly be. I believe that it's fair. We've made some sacrifices, in my opinion, in what's in the best interest for our students. And we might come down to a point where we don't have enough kids, and we may need homeschool kids to participate. But I don't think that's something that, as a Board of Education, that you can rely on us to hope that the homeschool kids come here. This ensures that our kids will have an opportunity to play sports. So, I think it's a great situation.
Does it start in the fall, in September, August?
It
whenever
will
it's
start this fall.
coming fall? So then we have a uniform expenditure that will be coming for girls' basketball and then
Well,
for-
I would recommend holding off. We do have girls' basketball uniforms still
what we do,
left over from when we
posted.
hosted, but they also then just bought brand new uniforms. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem with what they say on the front of it. I just want the kids to have an opportunity to play.
Will our affiliation also begin in the fall?
It will be
With the
participating
MSM?
in the MSM. So, to be honest with you, if it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings, I would just like to allow the coach to decide what uniforms they want to put on and play. Until we have further conversations about, like we talked about, a common mascot, common next step.
No expenditure is good for me.
It shouldn't cost us anything additional. Next up, I've included in your packet enrollment numbers for the 21-22 school year. Projecting a total enrollment of, a decrease in total enrollment of only 9 students. However, we'll be losing 10 at the primary building, at least that's what initial projections are showing, and 5 at the intermediate. As I mentioned in the last board meeting, I think that I think the administrators need to get together with the subcommittee of the curriculum committee of the board and start talking about positions that we're gonna fill and what that could look like for next year. And I'll be working with the administration and with that subcommittee to try to schedule something and hopefully come back to the March meeting with some recommendations on what we wanna do with those positions. So, that's all I have on that. Does anybody have any questions on that right now?
No, just that we need more students.
We do need more students, but
Jeff?
I did do some research. Illinois is the 3rd fastest shrinking state in the union, and at one point, I think maybe they still are, Macon County was the fastest declining county in the state. That is the 3rd fastest declining. So it's not just a Sangamon Valley issue, it's a Decatur public issue, it's all the county schools are.
It's an Illinois issue.
Yeah, it truly is, so. And then the last item is boiler repair. I sent to you the projected costs on those today, and just for clarity's sake, when we talk about this under new business, I will ask you to pass a resolution that would allow us to replace the boiler, repair the boiler without putting it out to formal bid, because in a situation like a roof or a boiler, you kind of need to have those things to function as a school. If you would prefer that I put it out to bid, we can table it and I can call some other companies and put it out to bid, and maybe we can limp by on our backup boiler, which I don't know when that boiler was installed, but I don't think it was ever installed correctly. And the new one, the newer one. When I came over as high school principal in 2007, there was steam shooting out of the back of this building like crazy. And I questioned it, and nobody really had an answer of why it was doing that. And I thought that with the steam system, it's typically enclosed, which the water goes back to the boiler, reheats, and then the steam's sent out to the rest of the building again. Along with that, you have some sort of chemical that treats the water. I'm not saying that Niantic water is terrible, but that's the way it is with any boiler system, or even hot water system like we have over at Eliopoulos. And so we were doing makeup water at an additional expense, and we were going through chemical like crazy. So I don't remember, it was 2 years or 3 years ago, I came to the board and asked that we replace all of the steam traps. We did that, we got a grant to do that, and then we also got this sealed off. Unfortunately, when you're shooting steam out the back of your building, you're causing your boiler to run more excessively than what it normally would. And I feel like that along with the makeup water and not being able to keep the chemical levels where they need to be, the seams between, the joints between the vessel itself deteriorated to where they could no longer seal those up, even with new gaskets. And we tried to repair the current one, and it just wasn't working. So now we have to decide, do we want to bite the bullet and put in a new boiler, or do we want to repair what we have? The benefits of putting in a new boiler, it's not that much more money. The new boiler will have a 2-mode system. It'll have a low and a high mode with the burner, and the fact that when it might be a day that it is not super cold outside, the The boiler will go into low mode, use less power, less natural gas, and we'll still be able to heat the building and keep it at an appropriate temperature. So there's advantages of replacing that and putting a new boiler in without a lot of additional money. I think the final total was somewhere around let me find my notes. Here we go. Total difference is right at about $5,000 at the end of the day. From having a boiler that will have a 10-year vessel replacement warranty and then a 1-year warranty on all other parts.
Well, I feel like, I mean, we're using a backup now, we're in sub-zero temperatures. I feel like it's something that we need to go ahead and act upon, and get it taken care of under the emergency guidance. I don't know if you wanna go around the table do we have it as a full motion?
We do.
Okay, so we don't need to go around the table. Does anybody have any questions or comments on it? Okay.
So, the only other thing I wanted to mention along those lines, I received a call from our natural gas broker, for lack of better terms. His recommendation is that we shut down school tomorrow. Really, he told me until Texas gets fixed. I'm like, what does that mean? Texas getting fixed. I guess what the problem is that Texas has shut down the electricity in their grid, and they cannot pump the natural gas up to us in a timely manner. Never once said there might be outages with the gas supply. Never said that. He just advised that our bill could go through the roof. The problem with the boiler system, the way it is here at the high school and the middle school, is that this is a steam system, that's a hot water system. You have to keep steam and hot water flowing through those at all times, especially in the winter time, or you're going to have parts of your buildings where the unit ventilators will freeze and burst and shoot water and nasty stuff all over the place, and then you have the cost of replacing unit ventilators at about $10,000 a pop. So, we're gonna have to keep the heat on, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. I'm hoping that there will be some sort of relief. I can't believe that our government would not step in and say, this is not it's not a supply and demand situation, it's an emergency situation, and we need to adjust somehow. I'm hoping that that's what happens, but I'm just warning you now that we could see some much higher bills.
There are other schools that we've seen in the news that are closing for the rest of this week, but I mean, we don't have that option to turn off buildings and heat and, or face potential disasters. So I think we just keep everybody rolling and hope for some relief on the bill end.
Right now, I have the motion as a replacement for a cost not to exceed, I don't think of it. I think what I did was I just approved the authorization for emergency repair of the high school boiler. And I think that at that point, then we can go around and decide whether we want to do a repair job or if we just want to replace the boiler. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's it for superintendent's report.
So we move on to,
New business.
yes.
Under new business, I believe that I left out in your board packet, I put it at your places. This was the QNS's proposal for their services. We're currently paying about $49.7 a month annually for their services. And you can see from this agreement that both year 1 and year 2 are lower than what we're currently paying. And then year 3 goes up and it's about $1,000 more than what we're currently paying. I expressed some of my frustrations to QNS when I met with them, and I feel like a lot of our issues have to come down with having a qualified tech in district. and that has been sporadic at best. And as I mentioned in my report to you, I don't feel like there's any company that could come in and guarantee that we're not gonna have a turnover in that person. And if we do, I don't care who it is, there's growing pains that come along with that. They have to learn the job, they have to learn 4 buildings, 4 very different buildings, and it's a big task, but I think that our new person has done quite well. And I would recommend that we approve their.
Are Q&S good about, if you go to them and say, you know, our administrators are fed up, this person is not being effective, we want someone else? Are they good about saying, okay, we're gonna send you?
If they have somebody, that's the problem. We've had some good techs and we've had some bad techs, and we've had some people fill in for techs that have been gone that have not really lived up to what our expectations were. But again, I don't know. I can't guarantee you that was not gonna happen with someone else. I don't think there's anybody else that could come here and shoot your proposal and say, that's never happened with us.
Hey, Bob, and they are going to be willing to service the devices even though we backed out of our deal to purchase them from them and we procured them elsewhere. They're still gonna service all those devices.
Yes, I believe they're up and running.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, part of it was not necessarily so much of Q&S not wanting to look at other avenues. I wasn't really interested in looking at other avenues until somebody could give us you'll have your Chromebooks on this day. Because I didn't want to tell them, all right, we don't want it, and then go through another 6 months of waiting for somebody else. I think Lenovo in general is probably not the direction that we ever want to go in the future. I believe that I'm not very techy, but it seems like these Chromebooks are of decent quality from Dell. They have just typically been a lot more pricey than, say, the Lenovo. So,
Is the tech full-time, Bob, or is he as needed? Does he like work at other schools?
he's full-time, but he does bounce around and has responsibilities of the districts.
Okay.
But he's pretty available here when we need him.
Is there a service agreement where if you call him, he has to respond within an hour, 2 hours, or?
There's not necessarily an agreement within that, but they do kind of monitor that. And their response rate is typically really pretty good within, I think the number was 83% of getting to problem within
Okay. I didn't know.
that business day.
Great.
So,
Beyond that, do we want to do the motion?
Yeah.
Or do you wanna go through?
no, I
Okay.
don't, does anybody else have any questions? If not, I would say let's go ahead.
Okay, so a motion to approve a 3-year agreement with Q&S for technology support services for the amount of $47,500 in year 1, $49,163 in year 2, and $50,883 in year 3.
So moved.
Motion made by Jeff Stahl, is there a second?
Second.
Eric Pearson, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl, yes, Weldon.
Yes.
Okay, can I go on to the boiler?
Yeah, I think you can, and then we can just kind of say repair or replace.
Okay.
I think it can be as simple as that.
So at this point, we need a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the award of an emergency contract for repair of the school building, specifically to the high school boiler. Is there a motion? Jeff Stahl,
Second.
second Roger Reed.
And that is to repair or to replace?
Well,
That's
that's
what
what
we
we're
need
gonna do
to
just a
decide.
second. This is to make the resolution, authorizing the emergency funds for it. Call roll, please.
Kent,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl, yes, Weldon.
Yes.
Guerrero.
Yes. Okay, so then at this point, we need to revisit the repair replace,
Yes,
and yeah, the difference was $5,000.
correct.
say replace.
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 Okay.
I'll just sign this.
Okay.
Joe, you can sign.
So we have 6-0 replace. Okay. Next on the agenda, the truck.
Next is the utility truck that seems like we've been talking about this for over a year now. I don't know if I was having buyer's remorse, but regardless of what I was going through, we did finally, I think patience had paid off, and we found a truck that is to our liking. Feel like it's a really good deal for the vehicle that we're getting. I sent you all the specifications. The motion that I have out is for an amount not to exceed $50,047.60. And the reason I wrote the motion as such is that they are going to give us some money for the van. We just don't know how much that's going to be. It could be $500, it could be $1,000, I don't know. But we'll take the whole thing over there tomorrow, and we'll see what they'll give us for the van, and then we'll pay the balance. But I would recommend that you go ahead and approve that motion.
Okay, so motion to approve the purchase of a utility truck for an amount not to exceed $50,047.60.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Weldy, is there a second?
Second.
James Kent, call roll please.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Is he a yes? Yeah. Okay,
Next up, the high school faculty entrance doors, the ones that you typically come through for board meetings, really probably should have been replaced during the engine project. Again, I know that we're kind of left with a total amount, and where do you stop? And I'm going to send this bill on to NG and see what they say. I don't know if they'll probably laugh and send it back to me, but as is, the current fob system on that door is not working. And it seems like if it's above 50 degrees, it seems to work okay. If anything lower than that, it doesn't. I don't know why. I was told that the hardware is worn and outdated. And then I couldn't really justify, or it didn't make sense to me putting a couple $1,000s worth of hardware on old doors that sometimes do not close properly and that sort of thing. So I'm recommending that you replace that doorway. It's a double door frame, mullion, the center bar, everything, for an amount of $7,259.
we have a motion to approve the bid from United Glass to replace the high school faculty entrance doors.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Roger Reed, call roll please.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Next up, if you look out the doorway and look up stairs directly across from the cafeteria, you'll see a wooden door. Behind that door is one of the largest electrical breaker panels that I've ever seen. Problem is that wood door is not a fire door, and again, that's something that I really feel like the engineers should have looked at before they put that panel in there. That was an addition that NG did. They also should have understood that that door needed to be upgraded. I'm definitely sending that one. I'm gonna hold them to that dollar amount. So I think we can get that cost reimbursed from NG.
Okay, so a motion to approve the bid from United Glass to install a fire door on the electrical closet in the high school for the amount of $2,495. Motion made by Jeff Stahl, is there a second?
Second.
Glenda Weldy, call roll please.
Stahl? Yes. Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
The last two items, we need to have discussion on spectators at extracurricular activities. Just about the time that we made a decision on what we were gonna do based upon the guidance from the CDC and IDPH, they changed what there was a 30-foot distance that you had to keep from the playing surface. They changed that to 12. So Mr. Field and Mr. Fleming went and kind of laid out the gym, both gyms, both the middle school and the high school. And I believe that we can come up and we can, with a way to seat, I'm drawing a blank on what it was. The middle school was more than the high school, which was surprising. I think it was 36, that's what I told you? And then 32 is the high school.
So that is with our current rosters, does that allow 2 people per student, or do we know that?
I have not seen a roster yet for the sport, so I think that's something that we need to look at. We need to decide whether that could be 2 tickets per player, or if it's going to have to just be 1. And then I would also probably ask the coaches that there's going to have to be a segregation this year, probably more than ever, between JV and varsity, because we're gonna have to keep those numbers manageable to where, you know, if the kid's going to come and sit on the bench at the JV game, maybe he can do that, but he doesn't maybe necessarily get a ticket for his parents to come watch him sit on the bench and maybe get in the game. So the coaches are going to have to be involved in this decision-making process, but I think we can do it in this manner. I think we can do it safely, and that's what I would like to work with both principals and Mr. Fleming and come up with how we're going to do that in a fair manner. But those people with the tickets would be the only ones at that point that would be allowed in the game. We would not allow visitors, as there are not many districts around, maybe Warrensburg Latham is the only one I'm aware of right now that allow visitors to come into their gym. The rest are, they're either not letting anybody in, just the essential personnel, or they're limiting the number of spectators. And that's what I think we should do.
I don't think any of my granddaughters, I don't know that they've been allowed in any away games. Home games, there's 2 per player, and that's it, so.
They have to use the bleachers opposite of the teams, is that right?
Right, the team, there's nobody who's supposed to be
Nobody
sitting
behind.
behind the team. But I think it's also, I mean, I just think you have to be consistent, whatever you decide for middle school needs to be high school, and, you know, I found it funny that one of the games I watched, they were, they had an upper deck, so I don't know, is it Assumption, or, one of those schools down south has an upper deck
Meridian
also,
does.
you know? So parents and stuff were up there, everybody was socially distanced, and nobody was close to the court, but the team waiting to play, the 8th graders were all in a huddle, like 8 of them, sitting in a bench, and I was like, okay, well, so, and the players on the lineup were 6 feet apart, they were on the bench, essentially. I'm like, you make no sense to me, but, I think, like I said, as long as we're doing it across the board and everybody knows what to expect. I assume the tickets, if you're having tickets, they'll have the date on them, so somebody can't come in and use for a color or something, so.
I don't know if we've figured out all the ins and outs of that yet, but I wanted to get your blessing to do that first, and then we can figure out the logistics of it. But for the indoor sports, I think that's the direction we could go. For the outdoor sports, I think we section off our bleachers for at least football, and keep everybody socially distanced, and then just ask people as they come in to maintain.
Now, are you doing away for outdoor sports? Or are there others?
I don't know, that's something that I would like to see what other people are doing. And I think at that point, I'd like to see what our conference, if they've taken a stance on that. And I think we go with whatever the conference will allow. I don't think that we need to count heads at football games or track meets or anything like that. I just think people need to wear their masks and socially distance. And if they can't, I don't want the administrators to have to police that. From people, I don't have any expectation at all that they do that. I hope people will use some sense and understand that if they can't follow the guidelines that they do, we don't have spectators.
Concessions, yeah or nay, are they on
I
board?
don't think concessions are
They're on board.
a go yet.
I assume, but.
I don't, I thought they did, but maybe not.
For high school.
And then our last thing to talk about is making a determination on prom. I know it's February and it may seem early to make that type of decision, but at the same point, I think people need to prepare and plan for that announcement or not prepare and buy dresses and tuxes and all of that. All of the things that go along with prom. So I kind of like to get, again, your feedback on that and see what you think. And then kind of go from there.
I mean, what are the phases right now? We're in the phase just before the opening phase, right? That's 50, no more than 50 at any one gathering. So, does any of us think that we're gonna be fully open by May? What's the date of prom?
It would have been what, April?
24th, I believe, or maybe you're earlier than that.
2 months out. I don't see the state being open to more than 50 by then.
I don't know what anybody else is doing currently.
There's schools, there's a lot of maybes, I know Argenta's already said no, and one other, I can't think of right offhand, but Mr. German over at Argenta did a survey with everybody, and there was just a lot of people were saying, we haven't even got sports going yet, we're trying to get that figured out, and we'll get back to you on that, but there was two that went ahead and said, you know, we're not gonna do it because, for obvious reasons, no dance floor, less than 50, no, you know, a lot of the kids were saying, we aren't even gonna come if it's like that. You can't, because we can't fit you all in either, so.
The only thing about graduation and being able to make a decision a little bit later is the fact that I'm hoping that people aren't going out and bringing tuxes and formal. It might be a situation where
We could do an outdoor,
we could.
and just two guests of parents only or something. Yeah.
Of course, we won't get a chance to use that. They might be so loud in there still by then that we won't want to happen, so working on that.
Well, I think prom cancellation is, I mean, I hate it, I would love to be able to say, yes, I think it'll be great, but I just don't see it happening by then.
I can see her doing that if they just leaving her down.
That I don't know, more than, we're probably right at 50.
You're right at 50, you're right above.
Plus the dates.
No dates.
No dates.
Go to prom, you cannot have a date.
You can't dance.
No dates, no dancing, and our venue isn't even calling us back. My sponsor has been trying to get in contact with the venue for months now, and they will not respond. So they don't even know if they have a venue at this point.
Who is that?
That's the Decatur Club.
Nice venue.
It is nice, yeah.
It might be shut down. So, do we have to act on that, or you just want our opinions around the?
I just wanted your opinion so that when we make the announcement that there's not going to be, that you're not caught off guard and that you understand the rationale. If somebody corners you, you can explain our rationale for doing this. As always, you can refer them to the administration, but I'm gonna tell them that we're going by what we know and where we are currently, and that is 50 people on a given location with social distancing. That doesn't describe prom at all.
And you know, I mean, best case scenario, everything opens up April 1st and you all scramble and you have it in the gym and everybody gets what they can wear and you have it, you know? But to say it's for sure gonna
says something otherwise, we'll do our best, but right now, stay out of CNO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't spend $600 on a dress. I mean, I'm fine with saying we won't have one this year unless there's some large change of guidance.
And I hate to even put out there that there's a possibility that we could have, because then sure enough, at the very last minute, something's gonna change, and they're gonna say, well, why aren't we having prom? You said it would change, we could have prom. I would just say, we're not having prom, and leave it at that. And if, you know, I think from what we saw last year, that there'll be somebody out there that will put on their own prom, or their own graduation, or whatever the case may be, so. That's what they choose to do, that's fine, but I don't wanna put the district in that type of liability.
Agreed. Okay, so no to prom, around the room?
There's a problem.
No? No? Okay. Good to go. So the next meeting, as we all know, is scheduled for March 17th at 6. Looks like we got some information today that they're gonna give us a little break on, our new legislative, what do they call those?
Oh, our press policy
Press
update.
policy, yes.
You're saying that we will not have another, update 107 will not be, released until mid-June. So,
We're free.
you guys have taken part in your last press policy updates.
And I think,
Super sad.
April's meeting, basically, everyone will need to be here for April's, and we'll have a special meeting after that to seat new board members, but, so 2 more meetings, and I guess just I'll take this time to say thank you guys. Hate to see you go, we've had a really good working board now for a few years, and I hate that, but I understand it, and,
After what I saw tonight, I don't know anybody does, to be honest.
it's hard.
I'm not afraid to say it. I don't know why.
You definitely do not make everybody happy, and that's the worst part of this. And, you know, people, we're in a small enough community that it makes it harder, I think, but. Anyway, next regular meeting, March 17th, 6, I need a motion to adjourn. Eric Pearson, is there a second? Martha, sorry.